This is a short bite episode of Homeschool Together. Hello and welcome to Homeschool Together. Thanks so much for joining us. We have a short bite edition today. If you have a chance, head down into the show notes. And if you could leave us a review and find the links there to support the podcast, that would be wonderful as well. There's no other way that we pay for all these board games that Ariel keeps buying.
Listen, don't. No shade.
I'm looking at the dog right here. She's on a diet right now because she gained a few pounds. So we're going to have to take a little bit more kibble off the top, little lady, because we got more board games to cover. Big lady, yeah, big lady. So today we're covering Cover Your Assets, which is a fun Grandpa Beck's game.
Yeah, it's a Grandpa Beck's game.
Is this our first Grandpa Beck's game?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of Grandpa Beck's games. And actually, we heard about this one from Board Game Babies from our friend Danielle Dabbs. But we just wanted to talk about it specifically as a short bite because we really love this. I put this in your stocking this year.
We've played it a bunch of times now.
Yeah, we've played it with a lot of different people. We've played it with my parents, with your parents, with our daughter, our game friends. We've played it a number of times, and it's just a small card game, nothing too complex.
Yep. And basically, you're basically collecting cards. You're collecting sets, right? Essentially, everybody's collecting tricks in front of them. You know,
right? So what it is basically, it's a
trick-taking game.
Yeah.
But it's also a stealing game.
Kind of.
It can get vicious.
It's actually, I would actually call it more of a set collection game.
Set collection?
So yeah, it's not really trick taking. So what you have is you have a handful of cards that are different assets from like $5,000 to...
I think up to 20,000, right? The log house.
20,000 and then there's silver for 25 and gold for 50. So silver at 25 and gold for 50,000 are wild cards. Yeah. But the other ones between 5 and 20,000, there's different things. There's an airplane, there's comic book set, there's a
log cabin, an airplane, a Vespa scooter, I think it was.
There's just a whole bunch of these different assets. I don't know how many different types there are. But what you're trying to do is when you have a set of them, when you have a pair, then you would put that down in front of you. And then if somebody, you can't put any more than two, just two. And then anyone else on the table, as long as that asset is showing up, they can play a card of the same asset to steal it from you.
So if you have two airplanes in front of you and I have an airplane in my hand, I go, okay, time for me to take your assets.
Right. And you'll take my airplane. And then if I have another airplane in my hand, I can counter him and keep my asset. And we can keep going back and forth until one of us exhausts.
And that's where the wilds come in as well.
And wilds are helpful there too. So the deal with Cover Your Assets is the moment that you get another pair, you cover the other one, you turn it 90 degrees and you cover it, and the asset underneath is now protected. Nobody can steal it once you've covered it.
Unless the asset above it is taken.
Right. Once the asset above it's taken, then it's uncovered and now it's stealable again. Yeah. So I am not a take that person.
You're not a take that person.
I don't like take that in games very much. I don't know if I don't know. I feel bad doing it. I don't like it when it's done to me. But for some reason, this game is different. It's because it's so ingrained. The whole point is to take other people's assets. It's not just like a sometimes thing. And there's a lot of turns where you don't have any option to do with your turn other than take someone's asset. I don't have any pairs myself. I mean, I've drawn a card. And, and you do have a draw pile and a discard pile, and you can take from those. And if you make an asset, if you make a pair, you can play it. So that's another way you can make it. But sometimes you have nothing to do but steal from somebody else. But you're being a little strategic, especially if I have a wild. Do I take my 25,000 wild and pair it with a high value card? Now I've made 45, maybe a 20,000. So I've made a $45,000 stack there.
Yeah, right.
And then once somebody battles you for it, now that stack grows. Oh, what if it's now?
So like for example,
80,000. Whatever we battle with, whoever wins, it all goes together.
Yeah. So you could have. There was a couple times where people they fought over the log cabins or the airplane, and it was like, okay, 2 log cabins is $40,000, and then they both played 40,000, and then they played a wild. So all of a sudden, you're talking about like you're talking about $125,000 is sitting in this one thing.
Right.
And then the next person, if they happen to have, a log cabin, because you guys just battled it out.
Right. Now you don't have any log cabins left.
There's no way to protect it. So that person now just, boom, takes the log cabin and all the cards with it. So it could be very like the dollar value could shoot up
It really
dramatically.
can. And sometimes you have something really great and you've covered it successfully. You may have even covered it with like 2 layers of asset stacks.
But then all of a sudden it gets peeled off.
They're stolen, and then all of a sudden this choice thing that you had, somebody's going to take it from you.
And so at the end of the game, you count up all your assets, dollar value, and then the person with the most assets wins, right?
Right. Really simple.
It's very real life, right?
Yeah. So it's a 2 to 6 player game. It's pretty fast. I think it plays in probably 10 minutes.
There's a little strategy with like respect to how much you try to battle for the thing. How much is it worth it to you? Because that next person could be, just swoop right in and take it from you.
Right.
And so it was really fun. Like I know our daughter, 7, there's really not that much math. It's just all strategy. How do you play the game?
Well, but there is a little bit. I think that there are some learning nuggets in it because you're
it just wasn't very complex rule wise.
Right. It isn't complex rule wise, but you're making some very strategic decisions about what you're going to put down and where, and what you're going to hold back. Like, okay, I'm going to put that wild with maybe a lower value card that I have, so it won't look as appetizing to people. Mm-hmm. And I have a couple of those in my hand, so I think that's a safe play. You're really, there's a lot of strategy, but there's also a bit of math in, okay, well, this is how many they've played. How many do I have some probabilities?
And do they have more of the lower end cards, like I know there's multiple cards that
I don't know.
I thought it was like the same amount of cards for every single.
I think every single a different asset value has the same number.
I think a couple of the asset values have like there was like the comics and then there was like the toys or something. They were both 5,000,
right?
But they were different.
There are a couple of 5,000s, a couple of 10s,
but they're only like
115 and, like 120 maybe.
Yeah.
So but there's a lot of cards in there. So I think it's good, and you're also kind of totaling up. Like, okay, how much is that worth now? How much is that stack worth? Is it worth going after? Is it worth trying to lose? And then how can I cover it? So there is a bit of math going on there. But I think it's a nice game with, like you said, very easy rules. This is an easy one to teach to...
It's a good warm-up game, I think.
Great warm-up game. Easy to teach to grandparents,
good
to
travel
play
game.
with non-gamers.
Simple deck of cards.
Yep, good travel game. I think there's good strategy involved. And of course, in the end, you've got to total up all of your own assets. So this was really kind of fun because our daughter was making... They recommend that you make sets when you total them. So you put all your 20s together and all your 15 together, and then you total them that way. So it was a really good exercise for her because the game is played so quickly. It's played in 10 minutes, and then she's got to like stack her 20s and go, okay, what is 3 20s? Oh, okay, that's 60. And she's going through and she's doing all of these kind of
simple addition, but with larger sums. And then at the end, and she's writing them down, the totals of each, and then at the end she's summing that all up. So I think that's a good amount of math to be doing. They don't have to be too intimidated about the thousands of dollars, because you could just say lop off those last 3 zeros and just treat it as the ones and dents.
Well, and they're listed on the cards and it was 20K, 15K.
Yeah.
So I mean, they kind of don't really. I don't know that she would even think of them in terms of thousands.
Yeah, right. It's true.
But I think it was good kind of putting them together and, how would you total all of this up?
Yep.
So I think it's a good game. It's fast. It's easy to teach. Yep. Pretty affordable. Be great to give in like an Easter basket if you're, doing something like that. This would be a great.
Or you're looking for like a nice camping game to bring in the summer if you guys are going out.
Something small that you can travel with. We were talking about that earlier. What games, if we were going to go on like a overnight weekend trip or something, what games would we take? This is the kind of game that we would take with us. It's portable. It's fun. It's fast. So that's Cover Your Asset by Grandpa Beck's Games. Thanks so much for joining us today and making us a part of your homeschool journey. Please engage with us on social media. Join our Homeschool Together podcast group on Facebook and find us at Homeschool Together Podcast on Instagram. We'd love to hear your feedback, questions, and recommendations. Until next time.
Happy homeschooling!